Alright, so we open on this beautiful green landscape with our main character holding a shovel. A white flag with a really intricate symbol on it flaps in the wind. Our guy strikes a pose and introduces himself. My name is Suho Kim, but then he immediately corrects himself. No, in this world my name is Lloyd Frontera. He lifts his shovel high in the air and declares this is his story. And then he slams the shovel straight into the ground. A massive blue grid of energy just erupts from the impact point. This thing expands out across the entire valley. Whoa, he says this is the story of how an average civil engineering student turned an entire world upside down, and we see this digital city rising from the ground. He just stands there looking over the massive city he just summoned out of nowhere. He turns to his silver-haired companion and says his name, Javier, who replies, "Yes, Master Lloyd." And Lloyd looks absolutely ecstatic as he yells that this is all money. He lets out this huge evil laugh and his buddy Javier just asks if he has finally lost it. Then we get a flashback, a few years ago in a quiet little village. A system window pops up with an alarm. It says he has been chosen for a random wish from the Absolute. Another window just says congrats with a little smiley face. He looks so done with this already. The system tells him he is now a character in a novel called Night of Blood and Iron. He realizes that is the book he was reading last night as the system cheers him on. And the poor guy is on the ground having a full-blown panic attack realizing he is in another world. He wakes up face first on a dirt road asking why he is here. He pushes himself up off the ground shivering from the cold, and he immediately grabs his face yelling about his lips. A health alert pops up saying his jaw is out of place from sleeping on the ground and then it just says laugh. Bro, the system is laughing at him. He gets so mad he just slaps the system window away yelling that he already knows. He starts thinking okay, so he has taken over a character in the story. But who? The only person who would just pass out on the ground was Master Lloyd. Oh no. Suddenly a voice calls out from behind him saying he has been looking everywhere for him. We see a man in a blue uniform with a sword at his hip walking closer. The moonlight catches his silver hair as he approaches. And it is the protagonist of the novel, Javier Strahan. He tells Lloyd to return to the manor. Our guy is in shock. He looks just like the book described, and wait, did he just call him Lloyd? He remembers this is Javier, the renowned swordsman who starts off as a knight for the local lord, and that lord's eldest son is the hooligan Lloyd Frontera. He is having a complete meltdown. Javier just stands there silently watching him freak out. He then says, "I called your name, but I have never called you a hooligan." And then he smirks and says it is good that he is at least self-aware. The system even chimes in that Javier is in a good mood, and so they head back. We see them in front of a fireplace as Javier asks him if he really does not know how he ended up on the road. Javier lays it all out. He started drinking, got drunk, wrecked a pub, and passed out on his way home. A true day in the life of a hooligan. Javier says his lordship was worried and sent him. Then adds, "You may be a hooligan, but you are his son. If you die on the road with your jaw out of place, he will be sad. Man, this guy really knows how to sneak in those little jabs." Lloyd is shivering by the fire wrapped in a blanket, wishing for a heated floor. But then he remembers right. This is a medieval fantasy novel. Javier says he will leave him to rest and report everything to his father tomorrow. Lloyd asks if he has to, and Javier just says yes. As Javier is about to leave, Lloyd calls out his name, and Javier turns back asking yes, Master Lloyd, and with this super shady look on his face, Lloyd asks, "Our family has a lot of debt, do not we?" Javier just looks at him completely confused, saying what a strange thing to say, and with that, he just closes the door and leaves Lloyd alone. Lloyd stands there thinking he knows everything that is going to happen in this story. We see a flashback to his old room. He remembers reading the last chapter, and of course he knows exactly what happens to Lloyd because in part 1 of the novel, the Baron and Baroness fall for a conman, lose all their land and fortune, and then commit suicide. Yikes. After that, the original Lloyd becomes a beggar who just drinks all day, constantly yelling for more beer, and then he just coughs up a ton of blood and dies. What a terrible ending for a character. He jumps up from the bed yelling, what is the point of being an aristocrat then? He says it is the same miserable life he had back in Korea. He's just screaming at the universe, wondering what kind of wish would put him in the body of a character with such a tragic fate. The next morning, we get this beautiful view of the valley and the estate. And we meet Lloyd's mother, Marbella Frontera, who asks him, "You broke things at the pub last night." He just looks at her and says, "No, last night I was reading a book. She's not having any of it." She tells him, "Lloyd, go to the pub and apologize." He scratches his head, thinking that since his new body made the mess, he has to be the one to clean it up, and agrees to do it. Both Javier and his mom are completely shocked. The system even chimes in that they are highly confused. And he is just thinking, could they not give me at least a little credit? So Lloyd and Javier head into town to go to the pub. A villager is just minding his own business loading up some hay. He glances over and his face just drops. He sees Lloyd and Javier walking down the street and just says, "Huh," and the dude immediately scrambles to get away from them. Our guy Lloyd is just standing there completely confused. Suddenly the entire street just clears out. Everyone is running for their lives. Lloyd just has this look on his face like, are you kidding me right now? A little kid even peeks out of a window to see what is going on. But his dad yanks him back inside yelling, "Do not make eye contact." Oh, that is rough. The shutters slam closed and a system window pops up saying the villagers absolutely detest you. Lloyd just thinks, yeah, I got that. He turns to Javier and asks, by the way, why are you following me? Javier says his father ordered him to escort Lloyd, but not for his protection. It is to protect the villagers from him. Cold-blooded, Lloyd thinks to himself that he has to get rid of this scumbag image, at least so he can get food when he becomes a beggar, or even better. If he can sort out his family's debt, he can live a sweet, comfortable life just bathing in honey. He wonders if he has any cheat codes or skills, and right on cue a system window dings. He realizes he does have a skill, and his skills are human scum and rowdy drunkard. Wow, just absolutely useless skills. He starts flailing his arms around in total despair. Javier just watches him and asks Master Lloyd, "Where are you going?" They are standing in front of the pub now, and Javier asks if he was lying about apologizing, but Lloyd says no, he was just thinking. Javier is just staring at him with this super suspicious look, and Lloyd is totally flustered asking what, as Javier asks him what is wrong, but Javier just closes his eyes and says nothing. Let us go in. So Lloyd pushes the door open and shouts hello, excuse me, and Javier is thinking to himself that something has been off since last night, that it is like Lloyd is a completely different person. See, I knew he was sharp. They step inside and oh my god, the place is completely trashed, broken tables and chairs everywhere. Lloyd immediately gets on his knees and bows deeply saying forgive me. Everything that happened last night was my fault. The poor pub owner looks absolutely terrified. The system even says he has assumed a position of extreme high alert. The owner begs him, Master Lloyd, please I beg you, do not do this. And Lloyd is thinking wait, he is more scared because I am being polite. So he tries a different tactic, getting all cocky and saying, well, I guess I am sorry, but the system just says his apology does not seem genuine. My man cannot win. The owner is just sweating bullets telling him it is fine and that he does not have to apologize. Lloyd just has this pained smile on his face. Yeah, that did not go well at all, and so they leave the pub. They are walking back and Lloyd says even when I apologized. He did not seem all that happy and Javier just replies that is to be expected. Javier lays it out for him. All the furniture Lloyd destroyed was bought with the owner's hard-earned money, and he will not be satisfied without compensation. Our guy is stressing, thinking about how they can compensate anyone with all their debt. He realizes nothing will change unless they fix the money problem. But how? Javier then drops another bomb. The pub owner's mother is sick from the cold, so on top of Lloyd's rampage, the guy is dealing with that too, and Lloyd remembers how chilly it was inside the pub, thinking that one little fireplace is not enough to heat the whole building. He keeps thinking about it as they walk. That the elderly cannot handle the cold unless they have something like Ondal floors, which is a Korean heated floor system. His past life is kicking in, and then he just stops dead in his tracks. Oh, I think he just got an idea. His eyes go wide, and you can literally see the light bulb appear over his head. It flickers on as he says, I got it. The idea is buzzing like crazy in his mind, and it hits him like a jolt of lightning. He thinks to himself that a light bulb just went off in his head. A blueprint for a heated floor system appears behind him as he realizes there are no Ondal floors here. He thinks if he builds them in this world, they would definitely sell. The original hooligan Lloyd could never think of this, but the real him, Suho Kim, definitely can because back in his world, he majored in civil engineering. Oh, it is all coming together now. He remembers being a military engineer building a house, and even working construction sites day and night, back in the present. He clenches his fist with this greedy grin, thinking this is how he will settle all the family's debts. He whips around and starts running back, yelling, Javier, let us go back to the pub. Javier asks why, and Lloyd just shouts back to get my first order. And right then a bunch of system windows pop up. Notification, your true journey has begun. And another one about an RP system being activated. It says his current RP total is 0, and Lloyd just stares at the windows completely confused. What is RP? He wonders if RP is like experience points, but the system is not telling him how to use them. It just says he can earn them by improving relationships with key characters. He turns to Javier and a little window buzzes over his head as Lloyd says, oh, I see something. There it is. And it says his approval rating is -30. Yikes. Javier just looks at him like he is trash. So Lloyd decides to test this out. He calls out Javier, who replies yes, Master Lloyd, and with this super sparkly filter he says I really think you're very good looking. Bro is laying it on thick, and it completely backfires. The system dings that his approval rating has decreased by 1 point. It is -31 now. He is freaking out wondering why it went down, and decides to just leave it for later before he makes it worse. So they finally get back to the pub. Inside, Lloyd is presenting a contract to the owner saying you are the purchaser, and I will be the builder. He lays out the deal. He will waive the construction fees to cover the damages, and tells the guy to sign. The pub owner just stares at him completely suspicious. The system even says so. Lloyd realizes no one trusts this body. The system says the owner is using a skill called Stonewall Heart. He is completely shut down, so our guy thinks to himself, I did not want to resort to this, but let us use his hooligan image. He gets right in the owner's face with this crazy look and basically threatens him into trusting him, and it works. The poor guy starts signing immediately. The system calls Lloyd absolute garbage and he just thinks, so what? What was I to do? He gets this evil grin on his face thinking I got my first order. He shoves the contract at the owner laughing like a maniac, while Javier just stands there silently judging him. We see them outside the pub. Lloyd has a shovel ready to start digging. Javier calls out his name, and Lloyd turns around asking yes. Javier is not buying it for a second. He says you threatened the pub owner to sign that contract. Are you coming up with new ways to cause trouble? Lloyd just looks back at him with this calm expression, and he starts dropping some Psychology 101 on him saying you are not as reasonable as you seem. Have you ever heard of cognitive distortion? He explains that it is when you believe someone will act a certain way just because of what they did in the past. He says it is a distortion caused by prejudice, not actual experience, and Javier is just looking more and more annoyed. Lloyd hits him with a counter question, are experience and statistics not all from the past? And Javier has no comeback. He's just thinking, was he always this smooth of a talker? Our guy just gives him this little smirk. Then he turns around and says the pub owner and his mother, I will make them smile for sure, and starts digging. He pushes the shovel deep into the ground, and with this absolutely unhinged grin he thinks those smiles will be the foundation of my money making. He gets into a rhythm digging and packing the dirt while Javier just watches from a distance. Then we see a time skip. He's building a whole timber frame for a new building. And just like that, a week later, the house is basically done, and Lloyd is completely passed out on the ground. He is just lying there groaning, this body is so weak. Javier walks up saying it did not take long, but Lloyd yells back it took a week, and you can see Javier is actually impressed. He's wondering where Lloyd learned this and if he is actually going to honor the contract. Lloyd struggles to get up saying he is sore, but there is no time to rest. He stumbles over to a chopping block and starts trembling as he tries to lift an axe. He screams as he raises the heavy axe over his head, shaking from the effort, but before he can even bring it down, another hand grabs the axe handle. It is Javier. He just takes the axe from Lloyd like it is nothing. Lloyd reaches for it, probably to say he can do it himself, but Javier just asks what he needs to do, and Lloyd gives him these super specific dimensions for wood planks. Javier just looks at the log on the chopping block and then just tosses it into the air. He whips out his sword and swings it in a blur, and oh my god, he slices the entire log into perfect little planks in midair. What in the world? All the perfectly cut pieces just clatter to the ground. Lloyd is just standing there with his jaw on the floor, completely stunned. He even gives a little thumbs up like he cannot believe what he just saw. He thinks to himself, whoa, truly this is someone about to become a master swordsman who needs modern equipment. He walks over, puts a hand on Javier's shoulder and says, Javier. And with this cheeky grin he asks when you are done, why do not you help me with the digging? Javier is absolutely livid, thinking instead of thanking me, he gives me more work to do. This man is truly hopeless. The system even says Javier regrets his decision. But Lloyd starts laying on the reverse psychology, saying Javier is curious and wants to see what happens, so he should help to speed things up. He holds up the shovel and says they should do it together, and Javier is just speechless. He thinks to himself that Lloyd is not wrong, but his past makes him impossible to trust, but it looks like it worked, because now they are both in the pit digging away. Javier is going at it, looking super focused. And Lloyd is right there with him, both of them working up a sweat. The shovel digs deep into the ground. He twirls it around ready for another go, and slams it back into the earth, and with that, the construction is complete. Lloyd throws his fist in the air yelling victoriously. Javier points to a weird symbol on the building and asks what it is. Lloyd says yeah, it is my brand's logo. He turns to Javier and says, right, Javier, shall we go find out what sort of con I have cooked up for the pub owner? He has this super smug look on his face. Javier just stares at him, completely unimpressed. We see a fire crackling away in a brand new fireplace, and from the outside, smoke puffs out of the chimney of the finished building. Inside, the pub owner and his mother are on the floor. The old woman is just melting into the ground saying it is lovely. It is so good. She has this huge smile on her face thinking all my stiff joints feel so relaxed. Oh, that is so sweet. The pub owner is on his hands and knees, touching the warm floor in disbelief, asking how can this be? Our guy Lloyd is just smiling to himself, thinking this must be astounding to the people of this world. He thinks this is the powers of the Ondal floor. It is like magic, as this warm energy swirls around the happy old woman. The pub owner is literally crying with joy. He says, thank you, young master. It has been so long since I have seen my mother smile like this. Javier is just watching all this go down, totally stunned. The narration says the pub owner and his mother smiled, just as he said. And now we are in Javier's head. He is thinking as if the change in his speech and manners were not enough. Now he works hard and keeps his promise to the people of the land. He looks at the happy family and thinks there is no way. Lloyd Fronter would never do such a thing, and yet somehow it has happened. Oh man, he is finally starting to see it. Javier looks on with a small smile, saying those two people are happy right now, and just like that, system notifications pop up. Javier's approval rating has increased to -29, and Lloyd has earned 36 RP. Our boy Lloyd just has this smug little grin on his face. He knew it. He turns to Javier and says, I know what you're thinking. Wow, this guy is not total garbage after all. Javier just replies, nope, I think you are. But Lloyd is not even listening. He is thinking to himself that even though he lost money on the timber, that is not what is important here, because this was never about just one house. This was the model home, the showroom for his new business, and a few days later, his plan is a massive success. There is a huge line of villagers winding out the door. A man stumbles out of the house, looking like he just stepped out of a sauna and says, wow, I thought I was going to melt. Lloyd is in full salesman mode at a desk outside, yelling amazing, is not it? And really warm, I bet you want a room like this at home too. He holds up blueprints showing 2 different styles, an annex or a remodel, and even offers a 10% discount if they buy both, but the villager hesitates, and a system window confirms it. They do not trust him. Lloyd tries to sweet talk them. He starts getting pushy, leaning in and saying, you do not trust me. At this price, I am practically giving it away. Just then, a stern voice calls out his name. Lloyd, an older man with a very serious expression, walks up, asking, what do you think you are doing? Oh man, it is Lloyd's father, Arcos Frontera. A system window dings over his dad's head showing an approval rating of -20, and Lloyd just freezes in shock. So we cut to the Frontera family mansion, and inside Lloyd is having a very tense dinner with his dad. They are sitting at opposite ends of this ridiculously long table, and Lloyd is just staring down his old man. He is thinking I managed to avoid him until now, and he is worried, thinking, but what if he stops me from building? His father finally breaks the silence and asks, what is it that you are up to this time? Lloyd puts on his best rude Lloyd voice and just says the pub owner ordered an Ondal room. So I built him one, he keeps it casual. Adding in other people of this land are making orders as well, but his dad is not buying it. He says the people of this land are the ones we must look after. I will not tolerate you lying to them or tricking them. Our guy just smirks, thinking I figured. No matter what I do, everyone thinks the worst. He tells his dad I am not going to, so do not worry. He gets up to leave, saying if that is all you are worried about, I will take my leave. While internally he is screaming, run, run, get out of here, go, but his dad stops him, asking is this all because of our family's situation? You have eyes and ears, you must know what is going on. Lloyd turns back as his father tells him I can get us out of this trouble soon, so do not get yourself too involved in this. Our boy just stands there, silent, and he thinks I have heard those words before. And we get a flashback to his old life, his dad telling him Suho, it will all be fine, so do not you worry. He remembers being told to just study hard and thinking it would all be okay. But now he looks down and says, liar. I know it is not okay, man, this is deep. He looks back at his father with new resolve and says, please do not give up, because I will not either. As he takes a step forward, we see a vision of his younger self from his past life, and he thinks I wish I had said those words to my father then. We cut to some time later. An assistant is reporting to Lloyd right now. We have 32 style A orders and 57 style B orders. He continues, I have received half of the money for construction, but he stops as Lloyd notices some new arrivals. And oh no, two very sketchy-looking dudes walk in. The system labels them Moneylender Meatloaf and Moneylender Shiloh. This cannot be good. The big one asks what is this and complains I am the son of the Lord, yet they do not stop to greet me. And Lloyd peeks around the corner thinking are those two. He is listening in from behind a slightly cracked door. Inside, the moneylenders are screaming at his dad Baron. How much longer are you going to put this off? 5 days have passed since the date we agreed upon. His dad looks super stressed as the loan shark threatens him if you continue to drag your feet. We will have no choice but to take action. The other one chimes in suggesting they sell some of the mansion's antiques to get the money. And our boy Lloyd gets this perfect little smile, thinking perfect timing. His grin just gets wider and wider. He thinks, they are here just in time. Oh, he has a plan. We see his system window. He has 36 RP. And he is thinking about how he needs to figure out how to use it. The system pops up explaining you can invest your RP on gaining abilities, and Lloyd is just like, wow, so this pop-up punk actually knows how to explain things. The system gets mad and says, forget it, so Lloyd quickly apologizes, and then a loading circle starts spinning. A blue light scans him from head to toe, detecting skills from his past life like soil mechanics, hydraulics, and structural mechanics. The scan continues, listing off even more of his engineering knowledge. Water supply theory, steel structure design, and even advanced design programming. The system comments you know more than you look, and Lloyd gets so offended, yelling, do you really need to say that? I have a scholarship for crying out loud. Menu appears showing skills he can buy based on his knowledge. Basic surveying for 15 RP and basic design for 20 RP. He figures he has enough RP to just click and see what happens, so he slams his finger on the menu. He picks basic surveying, and a bright green light flashes from his hand. He screams as a huge burst of green energy explodes out of him. He is in total disbelief. A grid now overlays his vision, and he thinks I do not need a GPS surveyor. I can just see it all with my own eyes. He then tries out basic design, drawing a glowing greenhouse blueprint in midair. He is shocked, thinking no way before this. I worked my butt off scribbling down the plans. He thinks to himself that things will be easier now, but he wonders if Javier alone is enough for all the construction he has planned. He wishes he could just summon some heavy machinery with his engineering knowledge, picturing a big old excavator, and right on cue, the system pops up saying, if you want to summon. There is something. Lloyd is like, what? Really? A new window appears. It is a random summon game, basically a gacha for a summon partner, and he just thinks what is this? Some kind of ad for a premium game. He looks at the big blue start button, looking super skeptical. Then he sees the price. One turn costs 50 RP, and he scoffs since he only has 1 RP left. He thinks to himself a summon. His mind starts racing with possibilities. Imagining a huge golden dragon, a giant beast, or even a glowing unicorn, he thinks if he gets something like that, it would be just as good as heavy machinery. He's completely sold on the idea. He needs RP, and to get RP, he needs the key characters to like him. And we cut back to the moneylenders yelling at his dad, with one of them slamming the table and shouting Baron Frontera. The big guy looks at the Baron and says, if you have no money, allow me to make a suggestion. And with this disgusting grin, he suggests selling the Baroness and her ladies to a very nice place to get the money. Dude, what? Lloyd's father is absolutely livid, yelling, how dare you? But then Lloyd steps in, grabbing the loan shark by his fancy collar. He says just because you are a lender does not mean you have to lack manners, does it? The guy is totally caught off guard, yelling, who are you? As Lloyd just jumps back with a bag in his hand. He recognizes him, L. Lloyd, and then gets all condescending, calling him the eldest son with peculiar manners and asking why he is interrupting. Lloyd just cuts him off, holding up a small pouch and says, whatever, now show me your warrant. The moneylenders are just confused, asking what, and our boy starts quoting the law, Royal and Nobility Act, Article 3, Clause 6. All nobles may exercise their right to protect their interests as vassals of the king, he continues, stating that entering a noble's home without a warrant is trespassing, and that is the key section. The two loan sharks are completely losing it, yelling, what are you talking about? I have never even heard of such a law. Lloyd just smirks at them and says, oh, then let us go find out together. He turns his back to them and just calls out Javier. Javier looks up confused, asking Master Lloyd as Lloyd walks past him toward the door, and our boy stands there at the doorway, hand on his sword, looking back with this cold expression. He gets this absolutely wicked grin and tells Javier cut off this trespasser's arm. The moneylenders are completely freaking out as Javier and Lloyd just stand there ready to go. Lloyd looks back at them with a smile and says, like I said, let us go find out whose side the judge will take, as Javier draws his sword, ready to do it. Man, he is all in now. And the two loan sharks just lose their minds, screaming in terror. They start scrambling away yelling, "D, do you think you will be able to get away with this? You will regret this." They run out the door and Lloyd just slams it shut right behind them. He turns back to Javier and gives him a little wink. He tosses the pouch of money over to him saying, "Good, Javier." But then his dad storms in absolutely furious, yelling, "What did you just do?" The Baron slams his hands on the desk, panicking that they do not have enough money to hold off the lenders. Lloyd just calmly places the big sack of cash on the table, saying, "I was planning to give it to you after I collected all of the money from the orders." He continues, "But this should be enough to cover a big part of this month's interest." His dad is shocked, asking, "You are taking money from our people." He accuses Lloyd of extorting them, but Javier steps in saying, "Not, my lord." Javier looks right at the Baron and says, "I will ensure that Master Lloyd fulfills the orders." The Baron looks from Javier to Lloyd, thinking to himself, looking at his face, "I see that he completely trusts Javier." Javier tells the Baron, "Then we shall take our leave," and Lloyd just stands there silently as they start to walk away. His dad stops them. He asks Lloyd, "How do you know about such a law? I always thought you were the ignorant type." Lloyd just says, "I just picked it up somewhere. Are you happy?" But he is thinking it is true that I did pick it up somewhere. From you, Javier. In the book, and we get a flashback to Javier's past, standing over two graves in the pouring rain after his Baron and Baroness died. Those same loan sharks came to dig up their bodies to sell them. We see Javier, drenched and determined, as he remembers the exact law he used to stop them, and after he quoted that law, it was off with their heads, as we see him cut them down in one clean sweep. The story goes that when Javier was brought before a judge, he was found not guilty and back in the present. Lloyd thinks to himself, knowing the content of this story is a huge plus. He has this little smile on his face, thinking, I should be getting a pop-up any second now. And right on cue, the system dings. His dad's approval rating went up by 6, and he earned a whopping 60 RP, bringing his total to 61. Our boy has the most wicked grin on his face, thinking just as planned, I am on my way, summon. So Lloyd stands out in the middle of this huge empty field and says, okay. So he glances around nervously, thinking there is no one around, right. He looks at the system window and says, show me the summon game. And with no hesitation, he slams his finger on that big blue start button. A massive flash of green light erupts from the system window as he hits it. Suddenly, these glowing green gears start grinding and spinning in the air. They fly around him in a wide arc, creating this huge formation in the sky. He looks up in total shock and yells, whoa, is that a magic circle? It forms this super intricate glowing circle above him, and he thinks this is so over the top. But then the whole thing shrinks down to this tiny little buzzing thing, and he just yells, it is so tiny, and it is so freaking noisy. The tiny circle gives off one last bright flash, and out pops this little hamster thing with a big goofy smile on its face. Wait, what? Lloyd just stares at it with the most unamused look I have ever seen. The little guy just plops right onto the ground, and then it springs up all cheerful, like it is ready to go. Our boy just stands there in silence, looking down at this thing. He clicks his tongue in annoyance and says, so it is a dud. Oh man, that is harsh. The little hamster immediately starts choking up with tears in its eyes. He hurt its feelings. Starts stomping its feet and squeaking PPO dong. PPO do dong, trying to defend its honor. Lloyd asks, what? You are not a dud, you can help me. Then he scoffs, what? Acorns, pew pew, I do not need it. But then he sighs and says, oh no, then show me what you can do. The little hamster starts chewing on something, and then it just spits out this slimy rock looking thing. Lloyd picks it up and it is a Peepodong user manual, covered in hamster spit. The manual says Peepodong the adorable hamster. Please give Peepodong lots of love. It says to feed it one of the enclosed sunflower seeds and its size will change. Okay, the red seeds make Peepodong gigantic for up to 12 hours, and the blue seeds shrink it back to normal size. A set of 1 red and 1 blue seed costs 1 RP. Lloyd looks at the tiny hamster and asks, so you just get big? Like people size? See for myself. He thinks about how hamsters are good at tunneling, and if this little guy gets big, it could be super helpful, so he offers it a red seed, and Peepodong just gobbles it down in one bite. Suddenly, a massive flash of bright light explodes from the hamster. It blasts Lloyd right off his feet. He goes flying and crashes hard onto the ground. He looks up in total disbelief, and there it is. A giant hamster staring down at him. Lloyd thinks is that 15 feet, no wait, he is over 30 feet high. And a system window pops up saying Peepodong's skill, digging level 1, and just like that, the giant hamster starts digging a massive trench at incredible speed. Then it starts packing the dirt down. The system dings again, packing dirt level 2, and now it is storing all the loose dirt in its cheeks. Cheek pockets level 1, this is not a dud, this is heavy machinery. And the giant hamster just spits out this huge pile of wet clay. It splashes all over Lloyd, who just stands there and takes it. He looks absolutely unhinged with this massive grin and thinks, jackpot, I have got my heavy equipment. But as he walks back, he realizes if anyone sees him with a giant hamster, they will get super suspicious. So he comes up with a plan to just carry a book on summoning and tell everyone he is a summoning master. He thinks to himself, geez, why am I so smart? And then moves on to the next problem, finding labor for his construction project. We see a wide shot of the frontier lands, which look pretty sparse, and it looks like he found his labor force. He is standing in front of a bunch of soldiers, telling them to repeat after him. He yells safety first, like a true construction foreman, and the 30 soldiers of his dad's barony just blankly stare back asking first. They do not seem very motivated. Lloyd thinks to himself how frustrating this is, calling them soldiers who get paid to do nothing. But then he gets this wicked little grin thinking that at least he has free labor now. So he starts his big speech yelling, listen up, you are all soldiers, and this here is the army. He tells them the point of an army is to do work, and that when he was in the army he spent more time digging holes than training. He points to this massive pile of clay and says he spent all night digging it up. Of course he is lying. He thinks to himself that Padong actually dug it all in just 30 minutes. He lays out his grand plan for an Ondal construction business for the people, and their first job is to move all that clay. The soldiers just slump over in total defeat. This is not what they signed up for. Lloyd expected this reaction though, and seems to have something else planned. Just then someone walks up behind him calling out Master Lloyd. It is a man with a magnificent mustache who introduces himself as Newman, the senior knight of the barony, and he asks, "What are you asking my men here to do?" Lloyd just gives him this smug little grin, thinking to himself, I expected him to confront me like this, too. And we get a little rundown of the power structure here, in this land. There are 3 knights. There is Newman, the guy in front of him. Then there is a guy named Byron, and of course our boy Javier. Lloyd thinks back to the novel, when the estate eventually falls. Javier and Byron remain loyal to the end, but our friend Newman here, he's the first one to betray the Baron and run. Yep, this is the guy who sells information on the Baron to the con men and leaves him saddled with a massive debt, so he is a real piece of work. Lloyd looks at him with total contempt, thinking it will not do for this man to be the land's foremost knight, so he just leans on his shovel and asks Newman, "Does it look like I am doing?" The knight gets all puffed up, saying, "You ordered these honorable men to cover themselves in dirt. As their commander, I will not tolerate this." But Lloyd just calls him out on his nonsense. "Bull, you are unhappy because I am close to making money which could pay off the debts," and he adds, "I have father's permission." Newman tries to pull rank, saying, "I do not know how you misled his lordship, but may I remind you of your prior conduct?" "Young master," he accuses Lloyd, saying, "I can think of no other reason for you to use my men other than for personal gains." Lloyd just looks down for a second and asks, "Wrong?" Then he looks up with this wicked smile and says, "Number, that sounds right." He leans in with a serious look and finishes his thought, "If you want to beat down." Oh, he is challenging him, and Newman completely loses it, gritting his teeth in rage. Lloyd is just thinking about how fragile this guy is. Lloyd slams his shovel into the ground, thinking now let us press his buttons, and he just swings the shovel, flinging a huge cloud of dirt right at the knight. He actually did it. The other soldiers are absolutely stunned, their mouths wide open in disbelief. Newman gets a face full of dirt, gritting his teeth as rocks and clay fly past him, and Lloyd just stands there, shovel at the ready, with the most intense look on his face. This is about to go down. Newman just stands there sputtering, He is absolutely losing it, yelling, "You scoundrel, did you just insult a knight's honor? You are nothing but the son of a poor soon-to-be ruined baron." Lloyd just cups his ear like he cannot hear him and says, What was that? Let us forget about ranks and fight this out." He gives the shovel a little twirl in his hand, and then he points the shovel right at the knight. He looks at him with that same wicked grin and says, "Do this thing. A duel, I mean." Newman is practically foaming at the mouth as he yells, "I will make you regret it, scoundrel." So it looks like the duel is set. We see the estate as someone says, "So you duel Sir Newman in 1 month's time." And it is Javier asking the question. He looks at Lloyd and asks, "Are you confident that you can win?" Lloyd completely loses it. He yells, "What? Are you dumb? Of course not." He continues freaking out, saying Newman is a low-level sword expert with a mana-heart skill and he is a nobody. And he asks Javier, "Were you even thinking?" Javier just puts a hand on his sword, thinking to himself, I was close to cutting him down. He thinks about how Lloyd just threw dirt in a knight's face and challenged him, and how he thought Lloyd was just being a hooligan again. But he realizes it was all too calculated. Lloyd got the Baron to separate them, and even assigned a different knight to oversee the soldiers. Javier is completely stumped. He cannot figure out Lloyd's plan, and he thinks to himself, how filthy. I wish I could cut him down, but then Lloyd gets up with a serious look and says, "Sir Javier, there is something I need you to do." He looks at Javier with this big, hopeful grin and says, "Teach me how to use a sword." Javier's response is immediate and cold. "I refuse." Lloyd is shocked, and Javier explains that his job is only to watch him. Then he adds, "Second, if scum like you, excuse me, human trash such as yourself learns how to use a sword, others around you would be in even greater danger." Damn, that is cold. Lloyd just clarifies anyway, "So you're saying you do not want to teach me?" Right, then our boy lays his trap. He asks what if teaching me how to sword fight means I am going to cure your insomnia. And you can just see the pure shock on Javier's face. He thinks, how does he know about that? Lloyd has this massive smirk. He knows he has got him. He says, "It is in the book, and I also know the cause of your insomnia." Haha, and we get a little lore drop from the book, explaining the 4 ranks of knights. From low-level expert all the way up to swordmaster. It turns out Javier is on the verge of becoming a swordmaster. His senses are so sharp he is basically superhuman, which is why he cannot sleep. So back in the room, Lloyd lays it all out. He asks, "So do we have a deal or not? It is no use pretending. You have insomnia written all over your face." Javier just lets out a long sigh. He knows he is beat. Lloyd pumps his fist and says, "Oh really? No take-backs." Javier smirks and says, "Of course, I know for a fact you will fail." He lists off all the remedies he has tried, from herbs to Eastern medicine, and then we just see him completely passed out in a rocking chair. Wait, it worked. Lloyd stands over him and explains, "Aha, you all figured out. I also knew how you were going to cure your insomnia." He says that Javier first fell asleep listening to a magic spell. So he just read him a textbook about reinforced concrete. That is the most boring thing I have ever heard. He points at the sleeping knight with this evil grin and says, "I read you my reinforced concrete textbook. Now your swordsmanship is mine." This man is a menace, and so a new day dawns. The birds are chirping. Javier looks totally refreshed and tells Lloyd 50 laps around the perimeter. Go. Lloyd just stares at him for a second, not saying a single word. and then he just takes off running. Javier is completely shocked thinking he is running without complaint. And there he goes, running his laps around the training ground as Javier watches. He just keeps on running, but as he comes back around he is completely out of breath yelling, "Ugh, I do not like this. Teach me some skills," and then he just keeps on running past him. He runs back with this wild look on his face, pointing at Javier and saying, "You thought I would not do it, did not you? You thought I would just refuse, did not you?" He keeps on running, huffing and puffing, and he comes back around again panting, and then you would be like, "You do not have what it takes and refuse to teach me, huh?" And Javier is just stunned. Bullseye, our boy saw right through his little test. He just keeps running past Javier, laughing his head off and yelling, "Now what? I am going to finish running." And a system window pops up saying his passive skill, "Annoying brat," just leveled up. Oh my god, the system itself is trolling him. He keeps on running, panting and kicking up dust as he goes. He thinks to himself that this is hard. He would be lying if he said it was not. But then we get a flashback. He thinks compared to his life in Korea, this is so much better, where he would wake up alone in a tiny boarding house. He remembers spending all day carrying bricks up 4 flights of stairs. And all night unloading delivery trucks. He did it all just so he would not starve to death, holding on to the hope that one day things would get better. We see him walking towards a distant light, telling himself it will get better someday. A glowing hand reaches out to him, a voice saying, "You are working so hard." The voice says you deserve it, and he is just desperately reaching for that light, thinking just a little more. We see the sweat and desperation on his face. But the light was just a tiny speck, and he was just falling into darkness. He collapses, the bricks he was carrying spilling all over the ground. Man, that is rough, and back in the present, he is still running, pushing through that memory of despair. He runs under the moonlight with a look of pure determination, thinking this is nothing. Javier just watches him go, still running his laps. And you can see Javier's resolve change. He thinks, if you're that determined, then I will teach you my sword fighting techniques. Lloyd is still pushing himself to the absolute limit, completely unaware, and then a system window dings. His approval rating with Javier went up by 1 point, and he got 18 RP for it. Hey, progress is progress. And later that night at the estate, Newman is in the Baron's study complaining about Lloyd, saying, "I cannot believe his disrespect. When you have protected our family for 5 generations. The Baron just looks disappointed, saying, "I thought he had come to his senses recently, but I see that I was wrong." He tells Newman I have no just cause to stop this duel, but he does ask him, however, as my heir, do not be too harsh with him, not to hurt him seriously, but pull him back to his senses. Newman just gives a little bow and says, "As you wish, my lord." But you can see the look on his face. He is thinking, but duels do not always go the way we want. Oh no. As he walks away, his inner monologue gets even darker. If I cut off that cocky hooligan's head and kill him, and if the Baron takes issue with that, I will kill the Baron and Baroness too and disguise it as a suicide. Whoa dude. He continues, and as planned, I will leave this tiny village and go somewhere bigger. He is actually happy about this, thinking thanks to that hooligan. Things are speeding up for me, biwahaha. He walks off down the hall, and then we get a big swoosh. 1 month later, it is duel day. Lloyd is standing there with his trusty shovel across from Newman and his sword. We see Lloyd's parents in the crowd, and his mom looks absolutely terrified for him. Newman smirks at our boy and asks, "Are you ready, young master?" Lloyd just plants his shovel into the ground with a thud. He kicks up a bit of dirt with his boot, getting into his stance. Then he swings the shovel over his shoulder with a massive grin and yells, "Of course." He looks absolutely ready to go, saying, "Ready to knock your lights out." The crowd starts murmuring, asking that, "A shovel, he's going to fight Sir Newman with that." Newman just scowls at him, clearly not amused by the choice of weapon. But Javier is watching from the sidelines, thinking a solid iron shovel. So that is what he asked the blacksmith for. Lloyd's mom thinks that boy, so it was all a joke in the end, while his father just facepalms in despair. Javier, however, thinks to himself, a joke? I do not believe so, when I think of what he showed me over the last month. And we get a flashback to Lloyd doing intense physical training in the early morning without a single complaint. He was also running the construction sites, teaching the village engineers about his new heating system. And then every night he practiced sword work with Javier until he was ready to collapse. Back in the present, Javier thinks that was not the disposition of someone preparing a joke. Master Lloyd is more serious than ever. The Baron stands up and makes the official announcement now. Let the duel between Lloyd Frontera and Sir Newman begin. Newman brandishes his sword, looking ready for a real fight, but Lloyd just holds his shovel in this super awkward pose, like he has no idea what he is doing. Even Javier is confused, thinking, what is with that lackluster pose? Newman gets furious, yelling, "Are you playing with me right now?" as he leaps forward, swinging his sword down. Lloyd just calmly points the tip of his shovel forward, and with a loud clang he completely blocks the downward strike. Newman is shocked. Javier and the Baron cannot believe what they just saw. Newman roars lightning does not strike twice and swings again. But Lloyd blocks it again with another clang, perfectly deflecting the blow. And Javier realizes what he is seeing. He thinks his movement is so efficient. It is a skill adapted specifically for real-life fighting. Javier thinks to himself it is as if our swordsmanship has evolved through the ages. And Lloyd just looks at him completely shocked. Our boy just gives this huge grin and says, "Are you so surprised? Any Korean man would know how to do this." He then reveals this is the essence of modern hand-to-hand combat, bayonet training, as we see a whole platoon of soldiers doing drills. And with another block, Newman goes flying backwards, completely stunned. Lloyd explains that the shovel is a much more formidable weapon than people think, its wide blade acting as a shield. He says it can cut through thick tree roots, demonstrating with a sharp jab that makes Newman flinch. Then he says, "And if I do this," as he steps on the flat of the shovel. He starts bouncing on it like a pogo stick. "Are you serious right now?" he yells, "Biwahaha. Bring it on, come at me." Javier is just watching from the side thinking was this all a joke. Lloyd is just laughing his head off, having an absolute blast. Javier is still trying to figure out if this is real, thinking not. Newman is absolutely furious. He lets out a scream and charges forward. Lloyd stops his bouncing and plants his feet firmly on the ground. He thinks about his plan. The first weapon was the shovel, and the second was the basic sword fighting steps from Javier as he parries every single strike. Newman is getting completely pushed back. Grunting, you bottle-loving lowlife, where is this strength coming from? And Lloyd thinks, in my third weapon is this. As a system window dings, skill expansion, shoveling level 1. It says all his physical stats increase when holding a shovel, and the tool begins to glow. We get a little breakdown of how he got the points for this. A +1 in approval from Javier, and points from his parents seeing him work hard for the first time. That brought his total RP up to 97, more than enough to buy the shoveling skill for 40 RP. We see him in a flashback, working hard with his shovel, thinking how it gave me the sweetest skill ever, and back in the duel. Lloyd takes a confident step towards the enraged knight, ready to finish this. Newman lets out a heavy breath. Okay, he's getting serious now. He says, I have no other choice against a civilian. I did not think I would need to do this. As he readies a massive swing, and suddenly this blue aura just erupts around him. What is this? Lloyd sees the change, but his expression does not even flinch. The blue energy swirls and gathers all over Newman's body. Javier recognizes it immediately from the sidelines. He says so he is summoning. He finishes his thought, mana heart, as we see the energy concentrate in Newman's chest. Newman grips his sword with both hands, looking much more dangerous. He glares at Lloyd and says we are only getting started. Hooligan. Our boy Lloyd just stares back, completely unfazed, and with a whoosh, Newman leaps forward for a powerful strike. Javier thinks to himself that it takes a normal person at least 5 years to summon Mana Heart, and it would be impossible for Lloyd to block an attack with that much mana. Newman roars as he brings his sword down in a devastating arc. But Lloyd just yells back, normally, as he raises his shovel to meet the blow. The knight grins maniacally, thinking I will crack that blade and that head of yours in one fell swoop. Lloyd's mother watches in absolute horror. His father is just as terrified, and with a massive flash of light, the sword and shovel collide. Newman's face is just pure disbelief. He is completely stunned. He stumbles back thinking, what is this? It is as if all the strength in my body is leaving me. Lloyd has this absolutely evil grin on his face, thinking, and now for the fourth weapon I have prepared. Javier looks on as Lloyd reveals his trump card, the mana conjuring skill that made Javier the strongest man in this story. He is using the Asrahan core technique, absorbing all of Newman's mana into his own body. Newman just screams in shock and pain, you absorbed my mana, and with all that stolen power, Lloyd just swings his shovel with incredible force. He smacks Newman right across the face with a huge whack. A single tooth goes flying through the air. That is just brutal. Newman is so dazed he just watches it go by, thinking, what is that? Is that my tooth? But Lloyd gives him no time to recover, deflecting another weak swing from the knight. He raises his shovel high into the sky, the blade glowing with power, and he brings it crashing down right on top of Newman's head. The knight gets slammed face first into the dirt, completely knocked out. The entire crowd of villagers is just stunned into absolute silence. Javier and the Baron are looking down from the stands in total disbelief. The audience starts whispering amongst themselves, unable to process what they just saw. The Baron stammers through the official announcement, declaring Lloyd Fronter the winner of the duel. Newman is still on the ground in denial, thinking I the sword expert, lost to that lowlife. Lloyd's boots step right up to him as he says, did you hear? I won the duel. He props the shovel on his shoulder with a sigh, saying, well, now that is over with. But then he gets this dark look and raises the shovel again, telling him it is time for you to take a pounding. Newman just lies there on the ground looking up in absolute terror. The Baron jumps up from his seat and screams, Lloyd, what are you doing? The duel is over. But Lloyd does not listen. He just starts beating the absolute stuffing out of Newman with the flat of his shovel. And the Baron can only scream his son's name in pure shock. Two guards finally grab a hold of Lloyd, trying to pull him back as the Baron yells, enough, Lloyd. The duel is over. The Baron looks down at his son, thinking, has he lost his senses? Javier just watches with this cold expression, thinking, has he? I do not know. Lloyd just pushes the guards off, saying, right, fine, let go, let go. He stands over Newman's unconscious body with his shovel and just lets out a little sigh. But then he starts wailing on him again, and the guards yell, Master Lloyd, stop. Javier watches this go down with a very serious look on his face. He thinks to himself, from my view, he looks like he is hitting him precisely to hurt every single part of his body. And our boy Lloyd has this completely calm face, like this was all part of the plan. Javier starts to sweat, thinking it is as if he knew everything already, and we get a flashback to 15 days before the duel. Lloyd tells Javier, now, teach me the Asrahan core technique. Javier is completely taken aback, asking, what? Why do you look as if you are on the run? And Lloyd just says, did I ask you to teach me how to steal something? Lloyd explains the technique, how the core draws in mana from the surroundings. Javier is stunned. He asks Lloyd, how do you know about that? It is a technique I have yet to tell anyone about, and it is still unfinished. Our boy just gives this smug little smile and says he heard Javier talking about it in his sleep. Javier thinks about how shameless Lloyd is, but also that there is no other way he could have known. He tells Lloyd, forgive me, I cannot teach you that, the technique is not yet, but Lloyd cuts him off, asking, finished. Lloyd gets this sly look on his face and asks, so that means you will teach it to me if I help you perfect it. Javier agrees, wondering where all this confidence is coming from. Lloyd just plants his sword into the ground and says, okay. Listen, Lloyd explains his theory to Javier, saying, I'm guessing you are trying to take the outside mana and then combine it with the mana heart within you. He continues, but it keeps going and bounces off. I think that seems obvious. From your mana heart's point of view, it is a foreign object, right? He says, so no matter of changing the way you are looking at it, as we see the mana swirling. He then lays out his genius idea. Do not think of it as mixing the absorbed mana into your mana heart, but condensing it separately nearby. He finishes his thought and using it around you on the outside. He gives this little smile and says it is like an auxiliary engine next to the main engine, as if they're one but also separate. What do you think? Sounds good, right? Javier is just stunned. He says it definitely seems plausible, though I am not sure what an engine is. Master Lloyd, how did you? And Lloyd just puts on this goofy mask face and claps, saying, huh, I was just spitballing. Did it make sense? Nice. While Javier thinks it is that face again, he clearly knows something. Javier narrates, so in that moment I was able to perfect the Australian core technique, which I had been agonizing over for a long time. He was the first to get up to 3 circles, and he thinks he can get to 4 or 5, and boom, a notification. His approval rating for Lloyd went up by 5, but Lloyd just waves it off saying, what? I do not need all that, just teach me the absorbing bit. I only need the mana that comes into contact with my body. Javier thinks back, Master determined with this knowledge he would be able to beat Sir Newman, and he did win, easily, and we are back in the present. With the guards holding Lloyd back as the Baron screams, Lloyd, do you not hear me telling you to stop? I will not tolerate you sullying this knight's honor any longer. The whole scene is just chaos. Lloyd struggling, Newman on the ground, and the Baron looking down furious. Lloyd just looks up at his father and asks this knight's honor, my lord. He then points to a nearby table and says, take a look under that tablecloth and then decide if those words are befitting of Sir Newman. The Baron looks confused but does it anyway, lifting the cloth to find a pile of letters. He picks one up and opens it, and his face just goes pale with shock. This is. Lloyd explains they are letters between Sir Newman and Tords, the man who defrauded you in a real estate deal. The letter details everything, the financial status of their land, the Baron's preferences, even plans to forge real estate documents. This dude was a total snake. The Baron is just losing his mind asking, I hid them in the wall, how did he? And Lloyd has this massive grin on his face thinking, yeah. Javier finds them later in the book, but our boy sent his little mouse familiar Peepodong to go snoop around for them last night, so now the Baron is just sitting there, looking at this pile of evidence of betrayal, completely speechless. Lloyd thinks about how his father is a kind person, and anyone else would be calling for this dude's head right now. But he knows that being a kind leader and a good leader are two very different things. So he steps forward and offers a suggestion to the council on how to deal with Newman. He says, let us drop a vicious mouse on this man's head if he is hurt by the mouse. Let him be exiled, otherwise, demote him to a foot soldier and give him the opportunity to repent. The crowd is just murmuring amongst themselves like a mouse of all things. But the Baron sees the wisdom in it. It is a test, an opportunity to repent, but with the threat of greater punishment always looming. The other nobles agree, saying it is a generous but firm warning to everyone else. So the Baron gives the okay, very well, let us do as you say, Lloyd. Newman is still on the ground all beat up, and he just stammers and no, I'm grateful for your mercy. But Lloyd looks down at him thinking, mercy, you say. Because our boy knows from experience that if you offer a merciful outcome to a guilty party, they do not change their ways, they just think you're soft and they get more stubborn and cunning trying to get back at you. And he is 100% right because Newman is internally screaming, you will regret this. Baron Front, I will have revenge on you and your lowlife son. Lloyd just gives him this little smile and says, it is a nice smile, though it will be for the last time. Newman is completely confused, thinking what does that mean? And Lloyd just pulls out the cutest little hamster you have ever seen and asks, what do you think it means? And with that, Lloyd just flings the little hamster straight up into the air. He looks at Newman on the ground and says the best way to ask for forgiveness. He finishes his thought is to remember that there is none, as the hamster crunches down on a red crystal, and then it just explodes in a massive flash of light. What? The entire crowd is absolutely stunned. Lloyd's parents, the nobles, everyone is just speechless. But then we see the cute little hamster still floating down completely fine. Hold on a second. Newman is on the ground screaming in pure terror as we see someone who looks like Lloyd running away in the distance. The real hamster lands gently on the knight's head as a massive pillar of light erupts from the ground. The explosion is huge, originating from where the fake Lloyd was standing as Newman lets out a final scream. The little guy is just sitting on Newman's knocked out body and says what a shame, and from a safe distance, the real Lloyd smirks and declares, and with this, the rotten apple of the land is gone, so after all that chaos with the duel, a new day dawns over the Frontier territory, and we see Peepodong's little hamster but just absolutely booking it across the land. My man is running so fast he is just a blur of fluff. He zips right through the middle of the town, kicking up a huge dust cloud. Javier asks what is Peepodong doing, and Lloyd just casually replies he is carving out a road. Lloyd thinks to himself that with some proper construction workers instead of feeble soldiers, the real work can finally begin. He explains that there was an ancient city called Rome that loved roads, and he's going to use their method for the Appian Way. He lays out the plan. I will use that starting now. It will go from his lordship's manor to the base of the eastern mountain. Javier just asks road, and Lloyd tells him with a smirk, just you wait and see. Our boy looks so confident saying it is going to put our land on the map, but Javier is not looking impressed. He's looking suspicious thinking, Master Lloyd, where did you suddenly acquire this knowledge from? He thinks about how Lloyd built a system no one had ever heard of and summoned a high-level creature out of thin air. And he finally asks himself the big question, are you really, Master Lloyd? Oh no, a big red warning window pops up. Javier has suspicions about your identity, and Lloyd starts sweating bullets. Javier is just staring him down with these ice-cold eyes. Lloyd's heart is pounding in his chest. He thinks from what I saw in the book, if he finds out that I am someone else who has stolen the body of his lord's son. We see Javier with his hand on his sword as Lloyd finishes his thought. He may very well use his sword on me. He would do that, and more. But Lloyd thinks there is no need to worry because he has a special skill for this, and he puts on this panicked face asking why am I not allowed? A system window pops up. Special skill. Stubborn insistence activated. And he starts deflecting by accusing Javier of drinking instead of watching him 24/7. Javier is not falling for it though. He asks then how do you explain the summoning magic? That is something even a skilled mage with 20 years of training would have a hard time with. Lloyd turns the tables asking Javier how he is such a genius with mana without a teacher. And then he makes this ridiculous face asking so you can be a genius. But I cannot. He keeps going saying I was born with the gift of summoning. So what? Leaving Javier speechless. He then just turns to leave saying he has things to do. And a system window pops up speedy topic change. And it totally worked. Lloyd just strides off thinking it is okay. It is okay. He walks past his construction crew and tells some guy named Byron to look after the road while he is gone. But Javier follows right behind him saying it is his job to watch him. And asks where he is going. Our boy just smiles and says he's going far away to get back some money that was stolen from them. And the scene changes to a beautiful sunset over a small border town called Ludinia. Inside a building, a man slams his fist on a table yelling, "Damn it." And look who it is. The real estate conman Tords. He is freaking out about losing money and thinks he was tricked. His much tougher looking associate just reminds him that is exactly how he earned his own fortune. The big guy then threatens to leave if Tords cannot pay him for protection. Tords panics and begs him to stay, promising he will get the rest of the money. He starts scheming about finding another easy mark and laying low for a while. But then a voice from the doorway asks, "Oh, were you talking about me?" as a boot kicks the door in. The door flies off its hinges and Tords screams, "W, who are you?" at the figure standing there. It is our boy Lloyd, walking in with a big old smile saying, "Ah, that is right, you do not know what I look like." He gives this confident smirk and introduces himself, "I am Lloyd Frontera." He asks, "Does that ring any bells?" And Tords and his muscle just look absolutely horrified. Tords is absolutely terrified, screaming and "No, run, let us run," but his bodyguard just calmly asks, "Shall I kill him?" But instead of fighting, the big guy just grabs Tords and makes a break for it. They go smashing right through a window to escape. And they are just leaping across the rooftops between buildings. The bodyguard looks back like he thinks he has gotten away clean, but he is stopped dead in his tracks by Javier waiting in the alleyway with his hand on his sword. Javier draws his blade in one smooth motion. He looks at them and says, "Give him here and walk away quietly. If you refuse, I will see you as a co-conspirator." He thinks to himself it is just as Master Lloyd said. Lloyd's instructions were perfect. They will try and escape out the back window. Wait for them there. The bodyguard just looks down at him and scoffs, "You are so young." He asks, "Do you even know how to hold a sword?" as he starts gathering this dark purple energy in his hand. And Lloyd remembers this part from the novel. After the Baron dies, Javier vows to get revenge. He finds Tords and his bodyguard, who we learn is a dark enchanter. And in the original story, Javier really struggles against his gravitational magic, but Lloyd just smirks thinking about how that was in the novel. Back in the present, the dark enchanter floats down ready to attack. He fires a massive ball of dark energy right at Javier. It hits him dead on with a huge explosion of power. But this time Javier is not struggling at all. He is standing firm and blocking the entire attack. The bodyguard just smirks and says, "So naive." He clenches his fist and yells, "Die," as he unleashes his full power. But Javier just plants his sword in the ground, taking the full force of the attack without even flinching. Lloyd thinks about how in the original novel, Javier was just a normal sword expert and the bodyguard is completely shocked, but this time is different. Javier's eyes are glowing as he taps into his new power because our boy Lloyd gave him a massive upgrade, a triple circle mana heart, and with one clean swing, Javier completely shatters the dark magic attack. Lloyd watches from the back, thinking what was that just now? Was that magic that increases one's weight? The bodyguard is just frozen in fear, sweating bullets because he knows he is completely outmatched. So he just throws Tords aside and yells our contract is no longer valid and makes a run for it. What a coward. Javier then turns his cold gaze to Tords, asking, "Do you know how serious a crime it is to commit fraud against a noble family?" Tords is just scrambling backwards on the floor in pure terror. Javier raises his sword ready to strike, saying, "I will cut off your legs and have you crawl to the courthouse." He swings his blade down with full force, but a voice suddenly shouts, "Enough, Javier, it is Lloyd." He jumped in at the last second to block the sword, yelling, "You are out of control." He tells Javier if he goes to court, they will have his head, and Javier just looks at him in disbelief, and Lloyd looks back at his knight's shocked face, thinking this man, is he showing pity for another person? Later that night in the town of Ludinia, the conman Tords is tied to a chair absolutely trembling with fear. Lloyd sits calmly across from him while Javier stands guard in the back. Our boy smiles and says, "Come on, no need to be so scared." He continues, "I can see why you made most of your opportunity. Everyone gets greedy sometimes." Tords asks, hopefully T, "Then are you going to forgive me?" And Lloyd says beheading seems a bit harsh. Lloyd agrees not to take him to court but says so you will hand over all of the Baron's remaining assets. Right, Tords immediately agrees saying if it means that you will forgive me, I will do so gladly. But Lloyd just keeps that smile and says, "Oh no, that is a given, we are just getting started." Tords' face just completely drops in horror. Lloyd explains you need to do something else to be forgiven, and Tords just stammers that his word is his command. With a bright smile, Lloyd says it is simple. Just sign this contract and we will be done. As he slides a paper across the table, Tords asks what kind of contract it is, and Lloyd tells him it is just a normal employment contract with a paid salary. He then adds a little detail, however. 80% of your salary will be kept back as repayment for the money you defrauded us. Tords just stares down at the contract, sweating bullets. And Lloyd finishes with the cheeriest smile. After just 520 years, you will be all paid up. Tords is completely speechless, just absolutely broken by that number. And in the background, Javier thinks to himself, I knew it. He was not about to just forgive the man. Lloyd gets this terrifying grin and says, you think I would be stupid enough to kill the guy who owes me a debt? I would never let that go to waste. He then declares I am going to suck him dry for the rest of his life, as he literally sucks the soul out of Tords with a giant straw. Tords is absolutely losing it, yelling, I have never seen such a shamefully unjust contract. While Lloyd just calmly replies, ah, is that so? He then gives this ice-cold stare and says, well, I cannot force you to sign it. Let us go to court then, and that is all it takes. Tords immediately breaks down in tears and signs his life away, so after that business is settled, we see them traveling back in a carriage. Javier is in the back with the two con men all tied up. And he tells Lloyd they should not have to worry about interest for a few months, but asks why he needs to hire more men. Lloyd just thinks to himself that with his hooligan reputation, he doubts any of the villagers would even apply for a job. A few days later, back in the front barony, a sign gets hammered into the ground advertising for workers with a salary of 20 gold per week, which is a crazy amount of money, and would you look at that, a massive line of people has formed to apply for the job. Lloyd is shocked and asks Javier, did not these people all hate me? And Javier says they absolutely did. However, he explains that Lloyd delivered the Ondal systems, took care of the traitor, and even used summoning magic. Because of all that, Javier says he is now considered a trustworthy and talented man, leaving Lloyd completely speechless and confused. One of the villagers asks about the work contract, and the guy at the desk just tells him to sign. But the man turns to Lloyd and says, first, I wanted to express my gratitude. He explains that his child used to get a severe cold every winter, but thanks to the Ondal system, they do not have to worry anymore. The man bows deeply, saying, thank you so much, my lord, as Lloyd just looks on in disbelief. Our boy gets this embarrassed look on his face, thinking I was just trying to satisfy my greed. Now I am all embarrassed. The man then mentions he has a relative in the neighboring Lacona land. He asks if Lloyd would accept an order from him too. And Lloyd's eyes go wide as he thinks it is finally here, the first stage of my big plan. He is thinking with a super greedy face, I did not build all those Ondals at a loss for nothing. I will use the travel expenses as an excuse to up the cost and I will clean up. The client of course agrees to pay the extra fees, and Javier just watches Lloyd thinking, and there's that shifty look on his face again. Lloyd is still monologuing in his head about how this was his plan all along, to build the Ondals at a loss. Javier is trying to connect the dots, wondering, so then, why is he constructing that road to the mountain? We see the two of them standing on a hill overlooking the territory, and Lloyd calls out to Javier. Lloyd says with a smile, pretty soon, these mountains will be stripped bare, and Javier asks him what he means. He explains that an Ondal requires a crazy amount of fuel, and the trees in the area will not be enough. Javier's eyes widen as he starts to understand the full scope of this plan. He asks, you knew this would happen, yet you still. But Lloyd cuts him off, saying that is why I am laying down the Apian way. He points to the end of the road at a mine entrance, and declares we are going to mine for black coal. He starts laughing like a madman, explaining that once people get used to the Ondal, they will have no choice but to buy his coal at a huge markup. He even says he will give his own people a discount, a very small one, and Javier is just horrified, thinking so sneaky, so devious. Lloyd turns to his knight and asks, you probably think that I am sneaky and devious, making Javier flinch, but then his expression turns serious as he asks if I do not do this. Do you think we will be able to repay our debts? Javier is just silent, unable to argue with that logic. He admits that it is the best solution for now, but then adds, however. Javier explains that the Baron knows about the coal and he leaves it alone for a reason. He says previous lords have tried to mine it several times before, but Lloyd just interrupts him. Our boy just smirks and says, I know, the mine collapsed because of the weak bedrock, but I can do it because he has knowledge from his past life. I have the benefit of modern excavation technology, the shield tunneling method. And we see a giant futuristic drill. Okay, that is a game changer. Javier is still trying to wrap his head around the shield tunneling method, but Lloyd is already hyped with a shovel, yelling, let us go. There is so much for us to do. Javier decides to just trust him, thinking our lord is a new man and he has a plan. So they head over to the old abandoned mine that has been caved in for years. And yeah, it looks exactly as dangerous as you would expect. But as we go deeper into the darkness of the mine, something starts to move as a giant insect leg slides down the wall. Another spindly limb shuffles across the cavern floor, and then the darkness is just filled with dozens of glowing red eyes. The silhouettes of these creatures start to emerge from the shadows, and it is a whole nest of giant ant monsters. Okay, so that is the real reason no one messes with this mine. But our boy Lloyd is not one to go in unprepared. He clasps his hands together, channeling his energy. He throws his hands out as a massive green magic circle erupts beneath him. Yelling, I summon you, a pillar of pure magical energy shoots straight into the sky, and he is not summoning some small familiar. Oh no, he shouts a luxury Gangnam apartment building, and with a massive wabam, a whole skyscraper just materializes out of thin air. Or at least, that is what he wishes he could do. He thinks to himself it would be nice if I had a cool skill like that. But in reality, he's back at his desk meticulously drawing blueprints with a magic pen, thinking this is taking forever. He groans, complaining that he could just summon 100 undead workers that he would not even have to pay. Classic Lloyd, but the system dings, reminding him that he can always draw it by hand. And he immediately backtracks, saying no thank you. This skill is the best, and we get a little recap of how he got these skills. After the whole conman incident, his reputation went up and he got 639 RP, which he used to level up his planning and surveying abilities. Brings us back to the present. Standing in front of the caved-in mine, he thinks now then, I need to dig away into there, so he activates one of his new skills, optional intermediate surveying, GPR scanning, as his eyes light up with a targeting system. This thing lets him see 100 meters deep into the ground, mapping out a safe path through all the weak bedrock, but he identifies the real problem. We need to dig it out as quickly as possible, and human labor is just too slow. He even thinks about his little hamster buddy Padang, who is currently sick, but he realizes even if he was healthy, he would be too big and risky for this job. Then an idea strikes him. His eyes narrow as he figures it out. That is it. That is what I have to do. He pulls up the system menu. It is time to gamble. Random summon game. It costs 70 RP per pull and he has 119. He thinks I have plenty of RP, so let us do it. And sits down as a little gacha spirit starts chanting. A summoning circle appears, glowing brightly, and a small, glowing pouch materializes in the center, and with a little pop. The pouch opens to reveal this adorable little worm creature with a bow on its head. What is that thing supposed to do? The summoning pouch lands with a splat, and out pops this little pink thing. It looks up at Lloyd with these big sparkly eyes and a bow on its head, chirping bangle, bangle. Lloyd is immediately suspicious, thinking, what is this? Is it for assassinating people? Does it have poison? He figures even Padang looked useless at first, so he asks the little worm if it can grow bigger with sunflower seeds, and it nods. He then asks if it has a special skill, and when it nods again, he leans in with a grin asking, can you show me your special skills? Little creature, Bangle, just puffs up its cheeks and gets ready to show him what it can do. And then we jump forward a few weeks later to the mine entrance. Oh my god, inside the tunnel, a now giant Bangle is attached to a machine, literally eating the dirt and rock to dig the tunnel. A system window pops up confirming its skill is chomping dirt level 1. This is wild. Lloyd yells back to Javier to get ready as Bangle starts to shake, activating its accelerated dirt digestion skill. Javier, looking absolutely ripped by the way, gets his sword ready and says ready. And then we get step 2. Bangle starts pooping out superheated steel rods. The skill is literally called Steel Dung Launcher. I cannot make this up. Javier just starts expertly slicing these flaming metal poops as they fly through the air. Step 3 is Javier slicing them into uniform lengths. And step 4 is a bunch of blacksmiths forging them into support beams for the tunnel. This is a whole assembly line. And Javier is just having a full-on existential crisis, thinking I am a knight. So why am I underground, slashing at a giant snake's turds? Lloyd is having none of it, just yelling, great, move forward. The entire machine rumbles and pushes deeper into the mine, and they just repeat the whole process. Lloyd is panting and wiping away sweat, thinking that if he had not installed an oxygen pipe, they would all be unconscious. Javier, looking concerned, tells Lloyd he should head out and take a break like the other men, but Lloyd just turns away and says, fool, I am the one in charge. If I am in charge, I should be on site. He's not backing down. He thinks about his past life in Korea. So many bosses just showed off their title, and they never even bothered to show up to site. I swore that I would never be like that. I will remain on site, but then his eyes start glowing green as he says, huh. His scan has found it. He yells, I see it, as the system confirms a massive vein of black coal. He rallies the workers, shouting, we are almost there. Men, keep going just a little longer, and the whole crew goes wild. One of the miners thanks him. Thank you, we got it done 10 times faster thanks to you. As Lloyd holds the now tiny Bangle, he starts giving out the next set of instructions. Listen up, once we reach the coal layer, we will dismantle the shield and enlarge the mining space. He warns them it is still dangerous, so do not get complacent, but he is cut off by a loud thudding sound from deep within the mine. The wall in front of them starts to crack and crumble. Lloyd is confused, thinking the rock here is solid, so there is no reason for it to cave. He immediately fires up his skill again, GPR scanning, and the scan shows something impossible. What is a hole that was not there before? The hole in his scan suddenly cracks wide open, and a giant ant monster bursts through the wall, heading right for them. Javier moves in a flash, deflecting the monster's huge claw with his sword. He stands his ground, looking absolutely ready for a fight, and with a quick slash, he slices the tips of the monster's claws clean off. Lloyd gets back to his feet, letting out a battle cry as he raises his shovel. He brings the shovel down with all his strength right on the ant's head, and he smashes right through its exoskeleton, panting as he stands over the dead creature. Lloyd is completely out of breath, thinking this was not in the book. What is this? And then the horrible realization dawns on him. Wait a minute, why are we just sitting here? Ants live in colonies. Oh yeah, the darkness behind the first ant is now just a sea of glowing red eyes as the rest of the nest starts to emerge. He screams at the top of his lungs, everyone out. Now, as the miners flee in terror from the swarm, Javier is just a blur of motion, slicing and dicing every single ant that gets close to him. Lloyd can only watch in horror, thinking how many of them are there. 200, 1,000, if those make it outside, our barony is finished. He looks over at his knight who is fighting like a demon and wonders can Javier keep holding them back. He tries to think of a plan, but collapsing the mine is not an option. Number impossible. There's not enough oxygen. He continues his thought, and even if it does collapse, they will dig themselves out in no time. What do we do? What do we do? And then bam, Javier just slaps him right across the face, yelling, "My lord, get a hold of yourself." Lloyd snaps back, "I am not panicking. I am thinking up a plan." And Javier just screams, "Well, think quickly." The knight is clearly on his last legs, yelling, "I cannot hold out for much longer." Lloyd is connecting the dots in his head: ant nest, black coal, underground. A literal light bulb goes off in his brain as he realizes the solution. That is it. He calls out to Javier as he grabs his shovel and quickly fashions a makeshift torch. With the torch lit, he declares their insane new plan: "We will face them head on. Let us go into the ant nest." Javier thinks to himself that sounds like a ridiculous idea, but as he cuts down another wave of monsters, he decides to trust him, but he must have his reasons. Lloyd yells, "Let us go," as the two of them charge headfirst into the swarm, deeper into the mine. Meanwhile, one of the miners who escaped runs back to the estate yelling, "My lord, I have a huge problem." The man in charge there, Sir Byron, is shocked, asking what wild ants and what happened to Lloyd. The miner explains he ordered all the workers out and has stayed in there with Javier. While Byron rushes to get his armor, he straps on his gear and sword ready to head out immediately. Back in the mine, Javier is just barely holding on, slicing through another monster. He pants, asking Lloyd, "Are we here yet? How much further do we have to go?" But Lloyd just snaps back, "Stop talking to me. I am really busy," as he swings his torch. They are completely surrounded by the swarm. Javier thinks it is a good thing the ants are not leaving the caves, but it is not good that they are surrounding us. He is clearly on his last legs, thinking, "I cannot hold up much longer." Lloyd activates his GPR scan, his eyes glowing as he thinks, "I need to find it. There has got to be a methane gas layer here." He knows that bacteria in the coal creates pockets of methane gas as they push deeper into the nest, and his plan is simple. "If I could just find it, I will be able to blow up the whole colony with his torch." Suddenly, his eyes lock onto something. Javier looks over confused. His skill pings a location on the ground as Lloyd yells, "There it is. The methane layer." Without a second of hesitation, he starts digging like his life depends on it. He gives Javier his orders: "While I dig, you slice up the ants." Lloyd screams with every ounce of his strength, digging into the rock, just as a massive ant lunges right for him. But Javier is there, standing guard and protecting his lord. He becomes a whirlwind of steel, cutting down every single ant that gets close while Lloyd digs for their salvation. Javier is a whirlwind of steel, cutting down every single ant that gets close while Lloyd digs for their salvation. But then the whole cave starts to rumble and shake violently. And from the darkness emerges a new challenger. "Oh my god, that is the biggest one yet." Lloyd looks up in absolute terror, saying, "Is that the queen? She is absolutely ginormous." The queen ant slams its massive claws down right in front of them. Lloyd asks, "Are in back right?" But Javier just says no. Lloyd argues, "Why do not you tell me after you try?" And Javier hits him with, "There are things you know even without trying." Lloyd asks still, "Do we have a choice at this moment?" As Javier just stares down the queen, the giant ant lets out a screech and charges right at them. But Javier is ready. A blue magic circle forms around his sword as he powers up. He swings with everything he has as the queen lunges. His sword connects right with the queen's face in a massive explosion of light. He grits his teeth, pushing with every ounce of strength he has left. But the queen's claw comes crashing down and he is forced to block it, screaming from the sheer force. Lloyd sees his opening, thinking Javier is holding up for now. Now is the time. Javier is locked in a power struggle with the queen, sparks flying everywhere, and Lloyd's shovel finally breaks through the rock layer. He looks up with a look of pure shock and relief. He yells, "Run, Javier," to the exit and chucks his torch into the hole, igniting the methane. The entire cavern starts to rumble and shake violently. The two of them are sprinting for their lives towards the exit as Lloyd points over there. "The small tunnel we came through." They dive headfirst into the safety of the small tunnel. Lloyd looks back one last time, his face set with grim determination. And with a final shout of "Feast on this, boys," he flings the torch back into the heart of the nest. The torch just pings off the head of a random ant and lands right in the methane pocket, sparking to life. The queen ant roars as the flames begin to erupt, and Javier instantly shields Lloyd with his own body. A massive shockwave of fire blasts out from the ground, turning the entire cavern into a swirling vortex of flame. The whole nest goes up in a single, deafening boom. Javier takes the full brunt of the blast, protecting his lord from the inferno. The fire consumes everything, leaving nothing but scorched rock and ash, and the two of them are knocked out cold from the impact, buried under the rubble. Outside the mine, Sir Byron and his knights feel the entire mountain shake. He tries to charge in, but his men hold him back, screaming, "No, my lord, you cannot put yourself in danger as well." Back in the now silent and smoldering cavern, our heroes lie unconscious. Lloyd slowly starts to come to, letting out a pained groan. He looks up at the charred husk of the queen ant and thinks, "My plan seems to have succeeded." He then sees Javier passed out beside him and realizes what happened. He gently picks up the tiny, unconscious Bangle, thinking, "Javier, he was shielding me from the blast. I am sorry, Bangle. Look at what happened to you because of me." But then his eyes widen in absolute horror at something he sees. He looks over and sees that their only way out has completely caved in. He stumbles to his feet, feeling dizzy, and then a system warning pops up: "You are running out of oxygen." His eyes flash green as he activates his GPR scan again, thinking, "So I need to hurry." The scan shows him a way out, but he has to dig through more than 15 feet of solid rock to get there. He just grits his teeth and says, "What else is there to do? I need to dig," and gets right to work. He glances over at his still unconscious knight, Javier, and he promises him, "We are getting out of here together, no matter what," as he starts digging with everything he has. He keeps digging, thinking I am responsible for you both. Meanwhile, Javier just slumps over, completely out of it, but even unconscious. The system tells Lloyd that Javier is touched by your determination to not give up, and his approval rating goes up by 6. He also gets a nice chunk of RP for his efforts, bringing his total up to 157, but our boy is clearly reaching his limit, panting and sweating as he digs. And that oxygen bar is now deep in the red. He thinks I might as well try, it is all or nothing, so with a look of pure desperation, he calls out, "Hey, messenger, search for a skill I can upgrade." The system immediately starts scanning for any pre-existing skills he can use. A blue aura begins to swirl around Lloyd as the system does its work, and it finds 3, absorbing mana, processing mana, and amplifying mana. Then it tells him he can combine them into a new skill called a Strahan core technique. Lloyd just grins thinking yes, after my duel with Newman. I practiced every chance I got and now I can improve that skill. The system asks if he wants to combine them for a measly 10 RP and he is like absolutely yes. A massive wave of blue energy just erupts from him and the system announces he has learned the advanced skill Strahan core technique. Single circle level 5. A little spark of light flashes in the darkness and a mana circle forms right around his heart. He thinks I can feel it even without a mana heart and his mana is now amplified to 120%. He knows that usually people can only improve their skills a tiny bit even with tons of hard work, but he is different, he has RP. The system tells him he can level up the skill for another 10 RP and he thinks I can blow it up to huge levels in no time. He does not even hesitate, just saying let us go. I am going all in on this as he hits the level up button. The skill hits level 6 and the blue energy around him just intensifies. His mana is now at 125% and he sees the cost to level up is now 15 RP and he just starts spamming the button. He's just mashing that level up button. Level 8, level 9, level 10. He thinks I have no other choice. I need to level this all the way up. And then the system hits him with a big skill upgraded notification. A bright blue ring of energy shoots up from the ground around him. Oh, he did not just level it up. He evolved it. It is now a Strahan core technique double circle level 1. His mana amplification is at 200%. But the next level up costs 100 RP, and he only has 7 left. He looks down, sweating, and thinks you have something else to tell me, do not you? The thing I had when I leveled up my surveying and design skills. And right on cue, 2 optional skills pop up. Energizer lets him move for 10 minutes without getting tired, and Latent Power Surge triples his mana amplification for 20 seconds. He grits his teeth, gripping his shovel and says here we go. He screams out the name of the skill Energizer as a brilliant golden aura explodes around him. With a mighty roar he brings the shovel down again and again, smashing into the solid rock. His oxygen meter is flashing red. As he desperately thinks to himself, please, please be there. The GPR scan shows him chipping away at the rock face, hoping for a tiny hole. If I can see just one tiny little hole, he becomes a literal blur of motion. The sound of his shovel echoing through the cavern, he just keeps swinging, digging like an absolute madman. The oxygen warning starts beeping frantically and he looks up with a start. But his scan finally shows it. He thinks I see the end. He lets out a triumphant yell as he continues to shovel away at the wall. He puts every ounce of his being into each swing, while Javier and the little pink fluffball lie unconscious behind him. The alarm is screaming at him now, but he just screams right back, pushing through the absolute agony. The beeping gets even more frantic. His scan shows he is only 3 meters away, but then his body just gives out, and he collapses to his knees with a thud. A system window pops up. Energizer has reached its 10-minute time limit. Oh no, he just kneels there, completely spent, with the wall still standing between them and their survival. But our boy is not done yet. He activates his final trump card, Latent Power Surge, with his mana tripled for 20 seconds. He becomes a whirlwind of pure desperation, smashing the rock with everything he has left, and he breaks through. The scan shows a 30-centimeter hole. But the 20 seconds are up, and his oxygen bar is completely empty. His body finally gives out completely, and he falls backwards onto the cold stone floor. As he loses consciousness, his last thought is way too short. I wanted to live the nice, sweet life. His final thought trails off of a country aristocrat, and with that, he is completely gone, lying there on the rubble-strewn floor.